So the aim for today's lesson is to mix our primary and our secondary colours and then the tertiary colours that come in between those colours on the colour wheel. So what we're going to begin with is we're going to begin putting the paint onto our palette, and I'd like you to follow the instructions exactly as I do here today. So we're going to use these paints and we're going to take a little bit of the paint and we're going to put it on the palette ready to use. We are not going to be using paint directly from the pot onto the paper. We always need to use the palette. So I'm going to take my brush and take a little bit of red and I'm going to put that onto the palette. In between, it's really important that you then wash your brush. It's a very good idea to have some tissue, and I'm using my water pot here to thoroughly clean that brush, and then I will dry it on my tissue, making sure it's really nice and clean, and that means that I'm not going to contaminate the next colour that I use. So I may need to wash it again until it is perfectly clean on the tissue. Then I'm going to take some yellow, and same again, I'm going to take a small bit of paint and I'm going to put it onto the palette. So you do not need more than about this much paint on the palette. You don't need a lot. Okay, so again, I'm cleaning very thoroughly with my water pot, making sure that brush is really nice and clean and drying it off. So we're going to begin just with red and yellow, and you're going to take, so I've got them nice and spaced out on my palette, not too close together. I'm going to take some red and I'm going to colour in where I have put an R on my colour wheel. And we're really looking for nice, careful brush control and lovely neat painting. Okay, so now I have put the red onto my colour wheel. I'm now going to put the yellow onto my colour wheel, and I will put that where I have the Y that I drew earlier. Okay, so now I have red and yellow. My next step is going to be to mix up my orange, but I'm also going to have a very red orange and a very yellow orange. So the way that I'm going to do that, so again, cleaning my brush with the water and the tissue, I'm going to take a little bit of red and add it to my yellow. You always add the darker colour into the lighter colour. So just a little bit of red into the yellow. I've got quite a yellowy orange now. So now I'm going to put that next to the yellow on the colour wheel. I can then take some more red and add it into that orange. And I'm aiming for the orange that is in between the red and the yellow. So a really strong orange colour. When I'm happy with that, I will put it where I have my O on the colour wheel. And I'm trying to really think about making sure the paint is nice and even, making sure that it is a good consistency. You may need a little bit of water if you're finding that the paint isn't coming off the brush nice and smoothly. You can simply dip into a little bit of water and then mix that in to the paint. So you have a bit of a thinner consistency, and then you might find that that will spread more easily onto the paper. So now I have my orange on my colour wheel as well. The final step is to add more red, so the orange is more of a red orange. So I'll take some red, put that into the orange, so it is clearly very different colour. I don't want them all to look the same when I paint them onto the paper. They need to all be different. Okay, now I think that's nice and different, nice and red, and I'm going to paint that into the gap between the red and the orange. Now what you might find is you can turn the paper around to make it easier for you to paint neatly. So I'm turning the paper as I'm painting so that I can paint nice, neat lines. Okay, so now I've painted my section that goes from yellow to orange to red, and the tertiary colours in between, the yellowy orange and the reddy orange.